Welcome to the Stay Ready Real Estate Podcast, where we stay ready so you don't have to get ready. I'm Emeka, your host, and this podcast is all about real estate, investing in real estate. I invest in multifamily, and I'm here to show you that regular people can invest in real estate. You don't need to have billions or millions. It's regular people like you and I who can invest in real estate today. So on this podcast, you'll hear from myself, as well as I'll bring different real estate professionals on from around the world to talk about their investing journey, strategies, market insights, or how they got into real estate so you can get started today as well. Stay ready, my friends. Hope you enjoy. What's going on, family? It's your boy, Emeka here. And today we're going to talk about a common question that I've heard on different podcasts, rookie podcasts, some things that I hear whenever, people are new, maybe get out of college or they just switch their job and they're trying to figure out how to get into real estate. And the question is, should I become a realtor in order to invest? Because, that's, 3 to 6% commission if you're the buyer and the realtors. Obviously, everything's negotiable. You got to watch out for the laws. Before I even start, I want to make sure that y'all understand I am not a realtor. So take everything I say from an investor perspective. But I work with realtors often, either daily, asking them to send me listings, pocket listings, building a relationship, etc. So should you become a realtor? Well, actually, no, let's go back. Will being a realtor help you invest? It's a twofold question because yes, you will be able to, see properties coming on the market. You will be able to have homeowners with distressed properties come to you because you're a trusted advisor, and they'll try to help. They'll try to go to you for you to help them sell their property. And all of that are benefits. You get to get early access. You see expired listings a little bit easier. But the other side to that is, you still have to pay for it. If you're full time, you make money by selling properties, not necessarily by buying. So you need to pay all of your bills because you're strictly commission. And you always have to act in the best interest of your buyer or your seller because you want to sell their property at the highest price. The investors want to get it at the best bargain. So there's a little bit conflict of interest there, but let's dive into it a little bit deeper, only because some people still don't kind of grasp that. But you might think that because you're a realtor and if someone comes to you and they want to sell their home, you'd be like, oh, I can buy it. I think I can buy it at this price. It'll help me make this return and go from there. And just from the thought of you thinking that is wrong because your thoughts should first be, how can I help them sell their property at the highest price, at the highest value, and what can I encourage them to do in order to sell it the quickest at the best price or the price that they're looking for? Because depending on who you're working with, first time homeowner or even an experienced person who's experienced homeowner, most of them aren't stupid. They can see what other houses are going for, other similar properties, and they're going to go by what they see online. And the thought process are just two completely different, which is why I personally say if you want to invest in real estate, you don't need to become a realtor. And I don't encourage it to start off with because number one, you're going to start focusing on how to make money by getting sales, right? Not buying, getting sales. You'll become more successful the more you buy. However, if you're smart with it, you can sell 5 or 6 houses, you save some of that to buy a multifamily rental. You don't need to be a realtor to do that. If you have a W-2, if you just get a job, like a normal salary job, which is not as exciting for some people, then you can easily just save money and then invest. And then since you're salaried, I would say there's a little bit more calmness to it because it's a little bit more secure, right? But high risk, high reward kind of thing. You get that. And another point that people make is, the commission. Well, if you are a realtor, you can, save on the commission because you're either putting that in a deal or, passing off somewhere where it'll be a benefit for you or the buyer or the seller. That's true. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. That is a great advantage. but it still comes down to the fact that your 3% commission that you'll make, and maybe even less than that, depending on how much your brokerage takes from you, it's still going to be a smaller amount than what most people, would desire. Like, depending on the size of the house that you sell, is depending on how big the commission is. And that might be able to cover title costs. There's still a bunch of other closing costs to it. But the whole point of this podcast is to let you understand, yes, it could be beneficial for you to become a realtor. However, it's not the end all be all. With becoming a realtor, it is a job. It is not an investment. There's a difference between being an investor and a realtor. And you can be both, but they have two separate identities. Because if you're a realtor, you have a fiduciary responsibility. You're paying, I think it's annual every year to make sure that you have your license upkept. You have to also, I believe, pay a brokerage depending on who they are. And you don't make money unless you sell houses. Period. If you have a buyer who bought a house, you still can commission, but you're going to need multiple of them for that to happen. And you're working for free until you sell that house. The period, point blank. I know there was a new lawsuit that happened a couple of years ago, and that has effect of some things that I don't know. But the point of this is for my investors or the newbies who are trying to figure out if they want to become a realtor. And also, everyone's becoming a realtor. I believe someone can put in the comments, but what I think, like, only the top 10% of realtors cover like 90% of the sales in Florida and Texas, or I think that's a pretty broad way to think about it. But if you're halfway in because you're trying to be an investor at the same time, you're gonna get spanked by the people who are full-time realtors, or that's all they're focusing on. They're focusing on their marketing, focusing on all aspects of getting exposure and selling houses versus selling houses and being an investor. I'm not saying that you can't do both, because some people are locked in like that and some people just have it. However, it's going to be harder for a newbie investor. If you want to go into some side of real estate where it's not necessarily a realtor, but you're making commission, I would almost just say be a wholesaler. There's some ethics with being a wholesaler because you're selling properties at a discounted rate to other investors or buying them yourself. But these are typically properties that no one can buy with agency loans. What is an agency loan? An agency loan is basically, you buy a house and you use Wells Fargo, or you buy a big bank. But with being a wholesaler, you're almost doing the similar things. You typically have a little bit less resources, but all those resources are out there for you. You're getting list of owners, you're calling that list and ask if they want to sell their property. You have to do a little bit more legwork on figure out, okay, because if you don't have access to the MLS like you would as a realtor, you have to figure out, okay, what are properties selling for? How much do you have to put into it? These are all assumptions. But if you just buy a good price, it's going to cost this much to sell. That's almost enough that you need, as well as some people skills. You got to know how to talk to people. And being a wholesaler, you're almost doing the same kind of work as a realtor because you're still marketing. You're still trying to reach out to people willing to buy homes. They're not going to be people who want to live in them typically. It's going to be people who want to invest, flip them, burr them, buy or demo and rebuild. But if you're thinking about being a realtor, I would sidestep and think about becoming a wholesaler, because they require the same hustle, but one is more catered towards investing and investors, and another is catered towards being a fiduciary and helping people sell homes. There's If you can handle both and understand what you're working with and understand that it's commission only, you're not going to make money unless you're selling homes for other people and, obviously managing your money correctly. It'll be okay. Like, I really do think being a realtor has its advantages. I thought about it, but the issue for me is I couldn't take the risk. I didn't have the reserves, or 6 to 8 months reserves, to take the chance of being a realtor, because being a realtor, you typically don't get going until your 6 month. And those 6 months you are grinding. So that's 6 months of bills, food, gas, and all these other expenses that you need to take care of, that can be stressful if you're not making income. So if you're thinking about becoming a realtor, if you think you need to be a realtor to be an investor, number one, you don't have to be a realtor to be an investor. And number two, just understand it is a hustle, and most things that are worth it are hustles. So you don't need to be a realtor to become an investor. However, there are its advantages. I recommend thinking about wholesaling because that hustle is the same. And if you can get good at wholesaling and build that up and build that business up, then I think being a realtor is not going to be hard for you. And you just start your own brokerage and hit the ground running. So hopefully this helps you, decide if you want to be a realtor or not, or if it's worth it, or if you just hire a realtor. So if not, let me know in the comments. Until next time, see ya. Thanks for tuning in to the Stay Ready Real Estate Podcast, where we stay ready so you don't have to get ready. If you enjoyed this podcast today, please give me a like and subscribe, and tune in next week so you can hear another one. If you ever want to reach out to me, I'd love to talk to you about real estate. If you're ever interested in any of the deals that I have, I'm based here in Central Florida, reach out. My information is below. Hope to see you next week. Stay ready, my friend.